And how long into the battle do you remember getting there, and at what point did you leave before the end of the Battle of Iwo Jima?
I guess I was ashore about 10 or 12 days. When I left, I think it was really more of a cleanup operation,
Okay.
but there were still Japanese fighting and firing, what have you.
And what was, during the 2 or so weeks that you were living there, what was the living situation like? What was it like to be on Iwo Jima?
It was a messy place, that's for sure. You had no place particularly to sleep except bare ground, and the food was not superlative, and you just did what you could do, and that was it.
Yeah. And how did being Jewish affect your experience in the Marines, if it did at all? And if, any particular examples, one way or another?
No, because maybe in boot camp there was our sergeant who didn't like those of my persuasion, but I survived it. And actually, anti-Semitism, I'm sure it existed to some extent, but not really, because everybody was doing, what they could do best, and that was it. So.
Yeah. What sort of contact did you have with people at home, and how did you keep in touch with them?
By mail, letters, no transoceanic phones or anything. That was it.
And how frequent was the contact, and who did you keep in touch with?
Parents, that was mainly it. So, trying to think. Yeah, I had one lady friend then, and good correspondence, but that was it.
Okay. And to what extent were you aware of things going on in the U.S., and how would you hear about those?
Well, that you hear about pretty regularly, as I remember, through headquarters, one way or the other. You'd hear about it. I think even there was maybe something like World Series broadcasts, broadcasts where they were actual time, or whether a delayed broadcast, that I really couldn't say. So.
And what sorts of things did headquarters do to entertain troops? And World Series broadcasting would be one sort of thing.
Well, there were shows on Guam. The usual overseas shows, guys and gals singing, some dancing and this and that. Who they were, I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you who they were.
It wasn't Bob Hope.
No, I think I would have remembered that.
So what role would you have had in a potential invasion of Japan, if any? And to what extent were you involved in planning and training and that sort of thing?
Well, training just went on as normal. If we had to invade Japan, I think the Marine Corps would have been the northernmost invaders. I have a suspicion, I've never been able to confirm it, that our battalion and our company might have been the furthest north. of all the invasion teams, so we would have lasted about 5 minutes in an invasion. So I was lucky that the bomb exploded.
How did soldiers react after the bombs were dropped? Because obviously no one really knew much about them.
Everybody, I think, was really delighted. Simple as that.
And were people aware of like the magnitude that the magnitude of the bombs?
I guess we heard about it, but
Yeah.
secondhand.
Yeah.
That was it.
So after the war ended, how long did you stay in the Pacific?
The war ended, I guess, with Japan. When was it? In August, maybe. And I think we shipped back probably in December or January.
And so what did you do in the interim?
Just a lot of nothing really. There's still a few stray Japanese around. Every now and then there'd be a hunt for them, but that was it. Some troops went to China. It was so boring, a bunch of us volunteered to go, but they didn't take us.
So some people went to China, did others go to Japan? Or after you left in January, how active did things stay in the Pacific?
Mainly it was just occupation, nothing really active.
Okay. And so when did your relationship with Marines formally end?
And in March of, I guess, '46, they gave us vacation time once we got back to the States, and then went up to the Great Lakes, and they said goodbye. I was very lucky on one thing. We were at special appointments. We were not commissioned. We were appointed by the president. And when the war was over, our regimental, I think it was our regimental commander, or it could have been the general, 3rd Marine Division, gave a speech to all of us and said, you know, we want you to be in the reserves. I remember after the last war, he said, people who were not in the reserves, some of them were on bread lines. And I said to myself, well, on a bread line, I think I could probably have my choice between white bread and rye bread. I'm not going to re-enlist. And I didn't, and then came along another little battle, and 90% of my friends who had re-enlisted were back again in Korea. And I was just lucky.
How difficult was it to reacclimate yourself to regular life once you returned home?
Wasn't difficult. It really wasn't. People were happy to see you, and not difficult at all.
Yeah. And during the war, what sorts of relationships did you have with other soldiers, and how many did you know coming in versus how many did you meet during the war?
I had about a half a dozen really close friends in the Marine Corps. We became friendliest when we were at Camp Pendleton, and they dumped us out at noon on Saturday, so we'd go to Los Angeles and spent Saturday and Sunday in Los Angeles, and got a picture of four of us in a Los Angeles bar at the Ambassador Hotel, which no longer exists. And unfortunately, two of them I know are no longer with us, and the third I'm not sure. But there's a fellow named Jim Ronayne who was a close friend. We got a Silver Star. A guy named Bill McGinley. And he was badly wounded, but came back okay. There was another fellow named Pete Mitchell, and I were both from St. Louis, so they were close friends, yes.
And to what extent did you keep in touch with them after the war?
Well, I saw them all after the war. I don't know if I said that two of them are no longer with us, I know for sure. But it's a good question. I can't give you an honest answer.
Okay. Excuse me. And during the war, I mean, of those people, were you in the same battalion? Were you shipped out together with them to Guam?
We went, there was the 28th Replacement Battalion and the 29th, I think. We were all split up. In Guam, we were not together.
So which battalion were you in?
I was Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 9th Marine Regiment, 3rd Division. So, and my number was 042044. That was my that was my identification number.
Yeah. And because of the war, thinking about the war, has your outlook on the war and its role in the world changed at all since 1945?
Well, the only thing might be changed, I think the United States is getting involved in too many wars. Some of them you have to be, but others not necessarily so. That's really my thinking on it.
And do you have any other sort of stories, moments that, from any part of the war experience that you remember that stand out for one reason or another?
Man, I really don't. The strange things that happen, I really mentioned most of them. And if I think of any others, I'll let you know.
There's one. So to what extent did the war sort of remain in the psyche of the American psyche, basically, even after the war had ended?
Oh, I think there was still a lot of resentment, both of towards Japan and towards Germany, but again, both of those have now rolled over, and we would like to be friends.